plant explosions. Tanks full of jet fuel, propane, and oil erupt in a series of blasts. An ominous cloud of thick black smoke sparks concern about safety. CFCN has extensive coverage of the explosions, and we talk to those who witnessed the blast, emergency personnel, and environmental experts.
CFCN News with Barb Higgins and Daryl Jans.
Good evening. It's the explosion everyone dreaded, yet it's still hard to believe. The Hub Oil recycling plant is engulfed in a massive fire at this point. There's been a series of explosions throughout the day, some small blasts, others enormous fireballs. The first explosion occurred just before noon, and it continues to rage out of control. There's still no word on what caused this blast, and there's still no word on 2 people who are missing. 5 people are injured. The plant is located at 5805 17th Avenue Southeast, and what makes this situation so frantic is the fact that the facility is in the heart of a business and residential community. Daryl Jans joins us now from the explosion site. Daryl, before we get into the series of events that occurred throughout the day, let's talk about what's happening right now and why fire crews are just letting this burn itself out.
Well, Barb, what's happening right now is that there are still huge fireballs going up from time to time, and as you can see behind me, a pall of smoke that has been there now for the past 6.5 hours. And so far it is burning, as you mentioned, out of control. And the reason the fire department is not going in, simply letting it burn itself out, is because of the danger of further explosions. There are still a few tanks that, as far as they know, have not exploded, and so therefore it would be extremely dangerous and a risk of lives to go in and try to fight the fire. One man who has been covering this right since it began is our Jeff Little. And Jeff, you saw it from its very early stages, have been here all day. Give us just a quick little summary of the day.
Well, Daryl, we were on our way downtown when we noticed the smoke. It became very obvious very quickly that this was going to be a major event for our city, and it's obvious we haven't seen a fire like this in Calgary for a very long time. As soon as we arrived on 17th Avenue, the traffic brought us to a standstill. I mean, people were coming from all over the city to check out exactly what was happening, and that caused a fair amount of trouble for the firefighters and the police to begin with. Everyone wanted to get a close look, but it became very clear very quickly that this was a dangerous situation. We had explosions occurring almost every 20 seconds or so, and these flames were shooting so high and with such force that even a kilometer or 2 kilometers away, you could feel the heat hit you. It'd be very similar to opening up your barbecue and that heat that hits you off of the briquettes. Very intense, so that obviously posed a lot of trouble for the firefighters who were here in full force doing their best to fight this fire. Joining us now live is Captain John Connolly of the Calgary Fire Department. John, obviously the concerns of Calgarians right now are with those who are missing. Can you bring us up to date on the situation as far as the injuries are concerned, as far as the number of people involved in this incident, and who is accounted for and not accounted for?
Yes, the injuries, luckily we haven't had any further injuries from the outset. There was 5 staff members from Hub Oil, 4 male and 1 female, that were treated and transported by EMS to hospital with varying stages of injuries. However, there was, and we haven't confirmed that yet, 2 people missing, and they still haven't been found yet. So again, hopefully they have walked away from the scene, and but again, until such times we get on scene here, that's all we can say.
Now, in an emergency like this, a facility like this, there would be a plan in order to tackle this sort of event. Can you tell me about your plan of action from the very beginning of this and the plan of Hub Oil? They obviously have to consider that this can happen. Were they prepared for this emergency? How did they handle it? How did the fire department handle it?
Yes, Hub Oil would have their own emergency plan. However, once we got on scene after the initial explosion, we actually got fairly close to the seat of the fire. We were attempting to knock it down. However, with the subsequent explosions, like I say, there's multiple vessels on scene. So the subsequent explosions drove us back 2 times to a farther away perimeter. Again, with the multitude of explosions that we've been dealing with here, it's creating a problem. We're waiting to hopefully get a confirmation that all the vessels have actually evacuated their products so we can get in there and knock it down.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, John.
Thank you.
Obviously, a very, very busy day for the Calgary Fire Department, Daryl, and by the sounds of things, it is not over. We expect to be here for most of the night providing updates on what the situation is. Still, the situation far from being in control.
All right, thanks very much, Jeff, and great job both for us and for CTV News 1 throughout the day. Well, people's natural curiosity drew them as close as they could possibly get to this fire, and it soon became obvious after the initial explosions that there was going to have to be major crowd control. And as the danger of secondary explosions and flying shrapnel became more and more evident, officers were forced to enlarge the danger area several times throughout the day. Murray Dale has that story.
Extreme danger lurked as the fire went on and on and on, with a column of black smoke that was visible for miles. But the hundreds of people who gathered to watch the spectacle did not realize how much danger they were in, and police had a difficult time persuading them to get back.
Please evacuate the area immediately. This is an unsafe distance.
One of the worst fears of a firefighter is a BLEVE, a boiling liquid expansion explosion. Firefighters at the scene of this fire noticed there were tanks, all containing flammable liquids, and all surrounded by flames. At noon, the commander issued a recall. All firefighters were pulled back at least 1 block from the fire. In a BLEVE, the container explodes, sending a fireball outwards and pieces of metal flying through the air.
Shrapnel all over the place out here. That's why we're asking everybody to leave. So I think you gentlemen best head out right away quick, okay?
Police did their best to get people to leave the danger zone, but it was futile. Many of them left only to return.
And when we were standing there, their tanker truck went boom, huge boom. And we heard probably about 10 or 12 big explosions after that.
For some neighbors of Hub Oil, this was nothing new.
It's blown up 2 or 3 times that I know of in the 14 years we've been here, and it stinks all the time.
These people were asked to move to safer ground, and they wasted no time getting there.
When the explosion happened, we felt it right through the house. It was just nuts. All the electricity went out, and I heard some people got killed and stuff.
So you're being evacuated now?
Yes.
Where are you going?
We're just going up the street to a fellow's house where it's safe. The
injured were treated at the scene and then transferred to Peter Lougheed Hospital. Murray Dale, CFCN News.
Well, once the fire began to spread and throughout the Hub Oil plant and the smoke began to spread through the area, it became apparent that the most immediate community affected would be Pembroke Meadows. And it wasn't long before evacuations began. And as the fire grew, as the smoke began to spread, it became apparent that they would have to set up an evacuation center. Shelley McCrugan has that story.
Evacuation emergency. Please clear the area.
Police officers went block by block in Pembroke Meadows, asking people to leave the area. The city's vandalism patrol also went door to door, evacuating hundreds of people.
This should be cleared all the way to the train track. If you fall down here and down south, it should be good to the train track. Okay. It should be in there. Yeah, there's still people in their homes over there. Yeah.
While some watched the explosions and fire from their rooftop, most left their homes.
They just told us that it wasn't safe to stay, that we should evacuate our homes.
Are you scared?
I'm a little worried. I feel bad if there was anybody in there.
Well, he called me at work, and I got a little girl, 2 little girls, and they told us to evacuate.
I wasn't going to leave, and he said, well, it's up to you if you want to stay or not. You know, the neighborhood might blow up, he was saying, but who knows?
So did you decided to leave then?
Mm-hmm.
How come?
I think I'll go.
How come?
Well, just because, you know, tomorrow's another day, and I can't see it.
Well, if there's any kind of danger involved, I don't want to be here, so grab the dogs and away we go.
Police said it was just too dangerous for people to remain in the Pembroke Meadows area. Continued explosions posed a threat.
Danger from debris flying. As you've heard lately, there's been a lot of explosions. There's been lots of metal and pieces of brick flying through the air, so we need people out of the area.
The initial evacuation center was established at the Pembroke Community Hall, although a lot of residents went to friends' or relatives' homes. Shelley McCrugan, CFCN News.
Now, the Red Cross is trying to keep track of those who have been evacuated, and if you have been evacuated, you're asked to call the number that we're putting up on the screen, 541-6100. That is, if you are one of the evacuees, you're asked to register at that number, 541-6100, or if you're trying to get in touch with someone that you think might have been evacuated, you can also call that number. We'll be back more with more later on. Right now, back to you, Barb.
Okay, thanks, Daryl. We'll talk to you again later in the hour. Now, the wind plays an enormous role in situations like this. David Spence is at the Weather Center. David, the wind really helped out throughout the day, didn't it?
We were extremely lucky today, Barb. There was no wind to speak of for most of the day, and not only was there a lack of wind, there was something called lift, or vertical motion of the air, rising air. That helped carry the smoke into the upper levels of our atmosphere and keep it away from the surface. Had we had any wind and that smoke blew along the ground, who knows what trouble we'd be in with smoke blowing into people's homes and businesses and just generally around a heavily populated area. But we did have that lift today. It carried the smoke away. It carried it up into the sky. But look what is happening now. The wind has picked up from the south. It's now at 11 kilometers per hour, and that is starting to blow the smoke in a horizontal direction. It's still above the ground, but if the wind picks up, this threshold of smoke could indeed come closer to the surface. Another problem is, as we get into the evening, that lift I was talking about tapers off. So this threshold of smoke will slowly sink to the surface. So we could, if they don't get this fire out before nightfall tonight, we could see some smoke problems in northeast Calgary, particularly if the wind continues to blow from the south. That's the direction that it will go in. Something to definitely keep an eye on tonight as the sun sets. All right, let's take a look at our forecast. Overnight tonight, we've got a low temperature of 12 forecast. The wind should taper off, which would be good news. Then tomorrow, 23 degrees with some afternoon showers and thunder showers, which we'll talk about more later on in the program.
Thanks, David, and we will have a lot more on the fire situation throughout the hour, but we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll have other news of the day for you. Russian President Boris Yeltsin made yet another bold move today, but it's to the point no one is really surprised. He's fired another of his key advisors, but this time it appears he's making the move with an eye to the future. We'll have details in our next segment. And right after the break, the premiers talk taxes as they begin their three-day meeting with the feds.
Factor that is occurring right now is when the plume is reaching the dew point temperature at a certain elevation, we are getting condensation of hydrocarbons, and they are falling to the surface in droplet form.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Kevin Pilger is with Alberta Environmental Protection. And as you heard, the fire department has been waiting to go into the site, and they're making that decision as the time unfolds. John Connolly is with the Calgary Fire Department. He joins us now. How are you coping with this fire?
Well, the firefighters are doing an excellent job. However, it's been very frustrating, again, with having this fire burn the way it is. We haven't been able to get in there to knock it down. But the safety concern is definitely of paramount importance here. Just when we think we have a window to get in there to extinguish the fire and we have the foam capabilities ready to go, we have another explosion. And again, until such time as we can determine that all the vessels have released their product, we really can't get in there to knock the fire down.
So what exactly is it that you're waiting for? A longer window, or not to have any explosions at all?
Well, exactly. We want to have, we don't want to have any explosions now. We've had officials from Hub Oil up in the Hawks helicopter to try and survey the site and see if all the vessels have actually ruptured, whether we have any vessels left ready to rupture. And again, we're ready. We've got our attack team ready to go in. But as Kevin stated earlier on, the byproduct that's going up into the atmosphere right now doesn't create too much of a problem. So in regards to the safety side of it, we'll just have to let it run its course. And hopefully within the next hour here, we'll be able to initiate attack. Like I say, we've got our crews ready on scene here with the foam attack, ready to go.
Now, what's the status of the people who were taken to hospital earlier?
My understanding, and we've been keeping in close touch with EMS here on scene, the status, there was 5 people, 4 males and 1 female from Hub Oil that were taken to hospital, treated and transported by EMS. A variety of different injuries, but apparently talking to EMS that they're all stable at this time.
And what can you tell us about the 2 employees that were unaccounted for?
Yes, that's a bit of a worry for us. However, we haven't been able to confirm whether they're actually missing. Possibly they've walked away from the scene, but again, that hasn't been confirmed yet. We won't be able to determine that, say, until such time as we get into the fire area.
Now, can you give us an idea of how far away are people being evacuated?
We've got a fairly strong, fairly large evacuation area, and Calgary Police have been doing an excellent excellent job on keeping the people back. We have definitely in the north side of the fire, downwind of the fire, there's a large area that's been evacuated. Exact square miles, I really couldn't tell you this time, but we are recommending anybody downwind, and we got a fairly large area here that we've sent out a closed door policy just to make sure that everybody that could be affected, keep the doors closed to minimize any impact from the flume of the smoke in the sky.
Now, any ideas yet on how the fire started?
No idea at this time. Again, our first concern, again, obviously, once we got on scene, was the health of the people that were involved, looking after the medical aspect of that, coordinating things with EMS, and then from that standpoint, we actually had a pretty good attack going on one of the tankers. However, the subsequent explosions drove us back for obvious reasons. It's just not safe enough to get our firefighters in there.
Well, thank you for talking to us.
Thank you, Lori.
John Connolly is with the Calgary Fire Department. Stay with us. When Calgary Tonight returns, more news and business news.
And of course, we're hopeful now that the wind will keep its present direction, keeping the plume away from the populated areas of Calgary. I don't think it's going to cap and create any kind of problem tonight.
And let's hope that's true. Thanks a lot, Don.
You're welcome.
Well, now we take you back to the scene of our breaking news coverage, that major explosion at the Hub Oil refinery in the city's southeast.
Our Ted Henley is down at the scene. Ted, let's talk a little bit, if we can, about the fireballs and explosions that are even still occurring down there. Can you feel them from where you are?
Well, we certainly can feel the heat, I can tell you that. Some of the ones earlier today shot up about 250 meters in the air. We can certainly feel the heat. Thankfully, as Don had mentioned in the weather, thankfully we cannot smell any fumes and that type thing, and the smoke is blowing away from us. But certainly it was actually quite spectacular earlier today. Right now, the most recent one was probably about 5 minutes ago, but earlier in the day they were happening almost every 5 minutes. They seem to have slowed down, but of course we'll keep you updated on that. Chris?
Ted, obviously at this stage we're not at the point of an investigation yet by firefighters and police officials, but is there any word at this stage of a possible cause for this?
Well, not quite yet, Linda. We've chatted with John Connolly from the Calgary Fire Department. We've actually chatted with the fire chief, and still there was no word as to what initiated the first explosion at about 11:30 this morning. We've chatted with a few witnesses and whatnot. Everyone has their own speculative answer, but nothing has been hammered in stone just yet.
Ted, in some of the shots that we showed earlier, it seemed like there was quite a crowd gathering down in that area, and we're getting the impression, obviously, from police and firefighters that is not a good idea to stay away from that area. Is there any of that going on near where you are?
Not quite. We've actually been cordoned off on the Calgary Fire Department's training facility, where most of the media from the city is here. And as you said, Chris, it is not a good idea to stick around. You never know if the wind is going to shift. If it does, then the smoke, if it does seem to settle, could blow towards people. And I mean, breathing that in just can't be good for your health.
Ted, can you talk one more time a little bit about the evacuation area? We know it has been expanded because of increased concern about health risks, so if anyone's just joining us, can you talk a little bit about the evacuation area?
Yeah, sure. It's a volunteer evacuation, 10 square blocks within the fire. Nobody's allowed to return home. Cars aren't even allowed on the street. The 100-kilometer radius that I mentioned earlier in the show, that refers rather to a toxic fumes warning zone. Anyone living north of Pagan Trail and east of the Deerfoot, even outside the city limits, some of the area ranches and whatnot, you never know where this smoke is going to go. We're not quite sure. We know carbon is the main component of the combustion, or the reaction rather, to the combustion, but we don't know what other types of chemicals and whatnot are mixed in with this stuff. And I can't stress it enough. Close those doors and windows, and please keep them closed until you hear from us or emergency crews.
All right, thanks very much, Ted. And we should remind everyone, some people may just be trying to get home after work, but there is an evacuation center set up at Jack James High School. Go there if you have nowhere else to go. All right, we've all seen the smoke from this fire, and many people saw the explosion actually happen.
Rami Faki is one of those witnesses. Here's what he saw and heard when he captured his hotshot home video.
It was like the war. It was like Beirut. Yes, it's very high. It was two explosions right away. And the first thing I did actually was from my cell phone try to call the police. But obviously someone else tried to call them. It was busy.
Could you feel the explosion?
Yes, you could actually, the windows and everything around us, just, you know, everything was shaking. So the first two explosions were the worst.
And we will go back to Ted Henley live at the scene of the hub oil explosion and fire a little later in our show.
Well, the markets are opening the week on a bit of a skid. Here's a look at our market watch.
Talk about actually what a nice day it was today, David.
You know, it was. It was a very pleasant day today for the most part. We had mainly sunny conditions. Some high, thin cloud just kept it from getting too uncomfortably hot. And with a high temperature in the 23 to 25 degree range for much of southern Alberta.
Well, it continues to be a volatile situation out here, Tom. I have Garth Rabel with the Calgary Fire Department, and I understand that fire crews are standing by right now. What is the current danger for your people?
Well, Incident Command has staged the fire apparatus where we are now. They're deciding on a game plan that we can eventually move in and offensively fight this fire. Unfortunately, right now, there is still a lot of volatile product on the site. And as we've seen over the last few hours and into later on this afternoon, it's extremely hostile in there right now.
Now, we have seen all kinds of explosions. Do you have any idea what was in those tanks?
Well, of course, we're dealing with the people from Hub Oil to find out what product is stored on site. We do know that there was propane and jet fuel and diesel fuel so far. And, of course, it seems that there's other chemicals as well. So we just want to make sure of the product, what's there, making sure that our crews are safe. And as soon as we feel we have a handle on that, again, we'll start an offensive firefight.
Do you have any idea, once you guys actually get inside, how long it'll take for you guys to knock it down and then have people return back to their homes? I mean, are people going to be out of their homes all night? Do you know?
Again, people are just going to have to be patient. This is something that the citizens of Calgary will have to deal with the emergency services, Calgary Fire, Police, and EMS. We'll try to get the situation rectified as quickly as we can. At the same time, I think everyone realizes we're not about to endanger personnel.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Garth. And, of course, we will have the latest for you coming up tonight on the news at 10. Tom?
All right, Tracy, thank you. Hopefully the wind will cooperate tonight as fire crews continue to fight that blaze. Let's join meteorologist Dar McCool live on 7th for the Outlook. Hi, Dar.
Hello, Tom. As you saw with the flames and also the smoke, the wind is from just south of southeast at the site and pushing the smoke towards the north and northwest. But with the daytime heat and also the heat of the fire, the smoke is lifting up. Upper winds from 1,000 feet above ground to 1,500 feet above ground are from the southwest. They will push the smoke towards the northeast and east of the city as the evening progresses. Now, with the overnight temperatures cooling off close to the ground, we'll set up an inversion. That means cooler air close to the ground, warmer air up top, and that will help to trap the smoke instead of dispersing it at upper levels, and that could be a problem if the fire is not put out soon. What we have outside right now, winds are very, very light, and they are coming out of the similar direction, southerly direction. Temperatures 24 degrees, south-southwest, 7 kilometers an hour. That is northeast part of the city. Humidity 50%, pressure 101.3 kilopascals. Our daytime high this afternoon attained 26 degrees earlier on this afternoon. Sunrise tomorrow is going to be at 6:15, set at 9:07. We have a band of cloud coming towards us, and we will see an increase in clouds this evening into tonight. Some scattered showers developing. Now, with the cloud cover that is expected overnight lows will be pretty close to the season values, if not a degree or so warmer than that. 13 degrees forecast for Edmonton for them tomorrow morning, 11 for Red Deer, 12 for Calgary, 14 Medicine Hat, 13 Lethbridge, 10 for Banff and Lake Louise. Tomorrow's daytime highs, same locations. Edmonton forecast to have 21 degrees, same as Red Deer, 22 for Calgary, 29 Medicine Hat, 28 Lethbridge, 20 in the Mount Parks areas. 8 channels weather, the forecast has us with increasing clouds, some scattered showers developing this evening, later this evening and into the night. Some scattered showers tomorrow as well. Generally a cloudy day. There will be sunny breaks early part of the afternoon and midday. 22 degrees expected tomorrow with the scattered showers. Those showers tonight are not going to help the fire because it is a chemical fire, and those light shower activities will, well, they'll fizzle out even before they get to the fire. Wednesday, some more scattered shower activity, some sunny breaks in the afternoon, 21 degrees. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, partly cloudy conditions. Expect to see some light shower activity in the afternoon. 20 degrees Thursday, 20 on Friday, and 22 degrees on Saturday. And the overnight lows will be anywhere from 9 to 11 degrees. That is it for 8-Channel weather from 7th Avenue. Now back inside to you, Tom.
Okay, and thank you, Dar. That's the Monday edition of 8-Channel News at 6. Thanks for tuning in. Join us again at 10:40 tonight for the latest on the Hub oil explosion and much more on 8-Channel News at night. We'll see you then. Till then, take care, everyone. Good night.
That was actually one of the big questions on my mind.
Well, it's good to hear that it shouldn't cause any major problems. Now, thanks very much for your reports down there, Ted. We've got a couple of phone numbers we're going to give out to you, the viewers, now. If you have any questions about the evacuation, the procedure, or where you need to go, you can call the Red Cross at 541-6100. And if you have any health-related questions, because there is the threat of some toxicity in that black plume of smoke, you can call the Calgary Regional Health Authority's information line, and that number is 265-4636. 265-4636.
And of course, we'll have all the details on the story for you tonight on the news at 11. But first, Don Wood has one more look at your forecast. Don?
And we have trust in nature.
Situation with you, the evacuation area. Police have established the perimeter from 52nd Street to 68th Street Southeast and from 17th Avenue to 8th Avenue Southeast. And if you're in that area, you should go to Jack James School.
We're back at 11.
Are still missing. It happened in southeast Calgary at Hub Oil. The blast sent plumes of smoke thousands of meters into the air. A large area has been blocked off, and 2,000 people living nearby have been evacuated. Fire crews have not been able to get close to the source, and making things even more complicated, a tank of sulfuric acid at the plant has just exploded. And reporter Mark Miller joins us now live from the scene with the latest. Mark? Mark is standing by. We'll try and get back to him as soon as we can, having a few difficulties reaching him at this point. But he is there, and we'll try and get that story to you a little bit later on. Meanwhile, already there are criticisms about how some emergency officials handled today's explosion. Residents of a Calgary trailer park say they don't think the evacuation was very well organized. One person who lives there said no one told him he should get out. He says he only heard from one of his neighbors that the area was being cleared. And nearby, another resident says it was very confusing that on one block, kids were playing outside while just doors away, people were being told to leave. It comes as no surprise, given what happened. Transportation safety officials now say the owner of a pleasure craft involved in a deadly weekend accident in waters off West Vancouver was inexperienced. The 40-foot bayliner called the Sunboy was carrying a load of 14 people to watch the Symphony of Fire Saturday night when the boat rammed into a cable connecting a tug